if you have to disappear off, please don't worry. So to start with an introduction, hello and welcome to those joining us. My name is Charlotte Burton. I'm the marketing manager for the School of Law, particularly here today talking about the Centre for Commercial Law Studies and our LLM programme that we run at Queen Mary in Paris, which is a super exciting programme for any that are interested in it and wanting to find out more. And hopefully you'll get some questions answered today from two of our brilliant students that are studying over in Paris at the moment. The opportunity you've got today is just to ask any questions that you would like. I've got some prepared to help start us off, but if you've got any questions you'd like to ask our students, they are living and breathing, studying on the programme as we speak, and they're the best people to answer the questions because they're actually doing the programme. So please answer, guys, honestly, about what it's like, just to give a true, transparent experience to the people joining us. Please feel free to use the Q&A and the chat function that we've got here on Zoom to ask anything that you would like, and we'll do our best to get through them as much as possible. If we run out of questions, we'll finish up a little bit early, so please don't worry, but we won't run longer than an hour session today, because I appreciate it's in a lot of people's lunch breaks. Okay, so let's get on with the introductions of our students. Felix, would you like to go first in just telling us who you are, what you're studying, where you're from? Would be great as well.
All right, lovely to be here. I'm Felix. I'm from Austria. I've done my law studies, my general law studies in Austria, which is equivalent basically to a master's. So I have already done postgraduate studies, and I decided to get to Paris and to do this program because, first of all, I wanted to improve my French. I've always was quite keen to learn French in France, and therefore I was looking for a program that offered me the possibility to actually emerge into French legal studies. And pretty quickly I came up with a solution to actually do the double degree. I'm currently doing the double LLM with Queen Mary in cooperation with the Sorbonne, Panthéon-Sorbonne University, and it offered quite good opportunities in terms of improving my international, or emerging actually into my international career in general, legal career, but also gives me a head start in actually my primary goal, which was to improve the French. Because when you do the general LLM here in Paris, you got to keep in mind you're at an English university. You're gonna have English classes. You mostly gonna meet people that are not from France, usually, and which means your general language in which you're gonna be talking is gonna be English. So in terms of learning French, you just have to be outgoing and actually want to learn French. Otherwise, you can totally manage without any French during the year. But not to say that I haven't enjoyed my studies, because they're going to be over pretty soon here, at least at the English university. Because they offer just great possibilities to evolve in whatever way you want. You're free and decide and choose any course you like. And I've made quite good use of them, I'd say.
Fabulous, thank you. Sarah, what about you? Please go ahead.
Yeah, I can introduce myself. So my parents are Irish, but I actually grew up in Luxembourg, but I went to an English school. So my schooling was in English, but I would say my French level was pretty good. Same to Felix, I'm doing the double. And I guess the reason for that was I did my undergrad in the UK and I really enjoyed that experience. And I think the way of teaching and the common law system, I really, really liked and wanted to continue that. On the other hand, if there are people who have done a bachelor's in the UK, you can do a placement year. And I did my placement years during COVID. So I was at home. So I was in Luxembourg and got industry experience. And what I noticed was there is such a big difference between common law and civil law jurisdictions, even the way you go about looking for a question or we're looking for an answer to a question, and realize that I would love to be able to, like, as Felix said, kind of do a combination of doing the civil law in Sorbonne and also continuing postgraduate studies in a common law jurisdiction. So this is kind of the perfect mix for me to be able to do both. And I think both Felix and I are also looking forward to next semester as well, being able to, I guess, more integrated and only studying in French. I think it's going to be a big challenge, but I think we're both really looking forward to that as well. And then as well, I would just say IP and arbitration sessions are really, really big at Queen Mary. And that was something I never experienced in my undergrad. So they were completely new subjects for me, which were really, really interesting. And I've learned a lot. And that's, I think, sort of the direction I'd like to go in the future. So I think, yeah, that was really good.
Fabulous, thank you. And you've both kind of touched a bit on your backgrounds, kind of where you're from. I think it'll be helpful for people watching to kind of share a bit more about what the student cohort is like in Paris, because there are students obviously from around the world. What's it been like this year, Felix? Where are people from?
To be honest, from all over the world, basically, except for Oceania, maybe, but South America and Europe, of course, and Asia. So we're quite mixed. We get a lot of perspective, and I do enjoy that because you just got to think we're not in a world anywhere where we're not connected to all of us. So it's quite good to have these connections and that kind of network. That kind of network that actually shares your interests as well. So there might be possibilities, and well, you just basically have to grab them and take advantage.
Totally. And we did have, I remember last year, a student from Australia. So we've definitely had one from that
I think
way.
so too, actually, yeah.
We definitely had someone from that way before. And I suppose a key difference actually for Paris compared to studying the LLM program in London is definitely like those class sizes as well, being a lot smaller. Sarah, how have you found that in terms of the classroom environment and the teaching stuff?
Yeah, that was actually one of the things I was maybe most nervous about, or just something that I thought would be really, really different. And it's actually ended up being my favorite thing actually about the program, about how small it is, because I think each class is maybe 25 people. And it means that you're really, really able to make good friends. You know, if you're only there for a year and you're all working and doing different things, it's hard to actually see each other that often. But with having such a small class, you're really able to make friends, connections. And I think everybody's very, very supportive. And again, because of everybody's international background, sometimes, the subjects can be really, really confusing for some people. And I found that everybody's really, really supportive. If somebody, knows more about an area, they're very, very like happy to help. So I think it's probably my favorite thing about the program is how small and sort of intimate it is. And I think it's also really, really nice in the sense of being able to speak to the lecturers because they're all so experienced in their areas. And I think if you were in a big lecture hall, you wouldn't really have, those one-on-one conversations or be able to ask, very specific questions sometimes. So I think that's sort of, my favorite thing about the program, actually.
Perfect, thank you. And the teaching style and that format is quite different as well because of the block style teaching. How have you guys found that? Felix is nodding, so.
Well, since it's been like that in my previous studies as well, I got along quite well, I'd say. But if you're more into that school style of teaching, you got to keep that in mind because you only have a certain number of subjects, like 6 or 7 in the double for the term, and then you only have like up to 16 hours per term, which means it is not a lot. You only meet like 4 times. So you got to keep in mind, you got to do a lot of reading for yourself. You got to do a lot of preparation for yourself, and you got to do a lot of after just general studying for yourself. If that is not for you, you might want to think of something else. But if you're self-organized and can handle your own schedule and are actually able to do that on your own, it's just perfect because the perks are you can organize your day however you want. You can, if you don't want to study that day, you can go and enjoy Paris, beautiful city of Paris, by the way. But if you want to prepare for the exam a little better, then you can just go to the library and study. That's the perks of block style.
Perfect. And can either Felix or Sarah explain how the block teaching works in terms of the academics coming over and teaching?
Yeah, so it's pretty much you usually have condensed, for example, one module might be either 4 hours or 3 hours per day, and it might be like two times earlier in the month and then two more times later in the month. And then that would be the only class time you have. So it is really important that you're prepared for the classes, that you're engaged in the classes, because that is the only sort of time you'll have in person with that lecturer to ask all the questions. Obviously, you can email them, contact them afterwards. But otherwise, they're obviously not on campus. So a lot of them will leave right after the last lecture. Yeah.
Perfect. And I think it's worth noting if people haven't guessed already, it's all taught in English, as Felix said. So our academics come over from London to teach, and you get that block time. But I guess that means you've got a lot of time for yourself as well. So what have you done with your time aside from that? Felix, obviously you said about exploring Paris, but have you used the time for kind of other opportunities at all?
Yes, actually, for example, in the month of March, I didn't have any classes at all. So I attended numerous events that were held in Paris, such as, for example, the Paris Arbitration Week. And as Sarah said, the arbitration section is really big at Queen Mary. So what I did, I attended numerous events there, and I actually built up a network, which led to a job for an arbitrator there. So that was quite good. I mean, I'm still working on that job, and if you have classes, it's a little bit stressful next to it, but you have great opportunities because Paris and I can only speak for arbitration. I can't speak for IP at all, but in terms of arbitration, with arbitration institutions here in Paris that are huge worldwide, you get great people. You get to meet great people and can build up an awesome network here. So well, that's definitely the perk of the box system as well.
Brilliant. I've always seen really good photos from the arbitration week, of all the stuff that goes on. Actually met a student in Paris, I think it was last year's cohort, and he was from the United States, and he was big in arbitration, and he was like, I have to come to Paris because it's the hub of arbitration in the world. So it's perfectly situated for that.
Yeah.
Sarah, what about you? Have you kind of made use of other stuff of your time, like obviously aside from your studies, but other stuff you've been able to do as well?
Yes, I would also just like to add to kind of what Felix was saying, not myself, but some of the other people in our cohort do actually have full-time jobs and are working. And so that is the thing about the block system. Sometimes it'll be like 5 to 8 in the evening. So it is quite flexible in that sense. If you do have a job and your employers are also relatively flexible, that you can actually work and study at the same time. Not saying it would be easy. I think it is, especially the busier periods during exams and when you have assignments due, I think it is quite stressful, but it is very, very much possible. But besides that, otherwise in the city, there's so many things to do. Another thing our class has done, I think the previous cohorts as well, like we make a really big effort to spend time with each other. So one of the things that our class has done is called Stammtisch, and it's sort of just every 2 weeks. We pick a different bar and we all meet there, and it's quite nice just to be able to, it's not in the library, it's not anything to do with studying, and it's just that more social aspect. And then also because everybody is so new to Paris, the idea of just going to a different bar every 2 weeks in a different area you may not ever come across if you don't live in that area. So I think that's something really fun that we've done, and has again been a really, really good in the sense of networking as well and really building those close relationships. And I think a lot of us have even met each other's parents when they've come to visit and everything. So it's really, really nice.
That sounds so nice. I want to come along to the next social event. That sounds great. And actually, when you're talking about kind of getting to know Paris, how did you find, and this might be a dangerous question, the kind of move to Paris and the change of that? John Felix, he went, oh.
Finding an apartment is difficult in Paris. There is no other way to say it, to be honest. And well, in my case, I got it through friends over friends over friends. So I got lucky. But we had students come over, I think 2 or 3 actually, but correct me, Sarah, if I'm wrong. We had 2 or 3 students that actually came here without having an apartment, just because it's horrible to find one. And but they all managed. It's not cheap. It's not cheap. That's why some of us are still working or working full time. But if you're here, it's manageable. But it's difficult. Just can't say it otherwise.
Yeah. Sarah, what did you do in terms of, was there anything that helped at all?
Yeah, I would say I was one of the ones who actually didn't have accommodation. It was more so because I just wasn't as organized, I don't think. I just didn't know Paris at all, really. So when it came to like good areas to live or anything, so the first 2 weeks I was in Airbnb and then I was able to find a longer sublet, but I do think it is very, very difficult. The university did help in the sense of they gave you websites and different things to be able to find an apartment. But I do think it is very, very challenging, and the sooner you can do it, the better. I do think there are a lot of students who are at City University, which is sort of the only, not the only, but a very big student accommodation. And then we do have other students who are sort of in student accommodation, but it's not related to Queen Mary or Sorbonne. It's sort of a general sort of student accommodation. So we do have people doing that as well.
So top tip would be be prepared and start looking early.
Yes, exactly. And I do think, if there are people here coming in September, I think bear in mind with the Olympics, it's probably even tougher or it could be more expensive. So I think it's tougher than normal, I think, at this time, but everybody did figure it out eventually. So
It's good to hear. And what's it like at the moment with the Olympics going on? It's like good or bad, is the
there's a lot of construction, especially for example where the Queen Mary University campus is. It's beautiful and it's right in the center. It's by Invalides. And usually there's like a beautiful green area. So this summertime we're all looking forward to like having picnics there and everything, but it's all covered up now
oh
and they're
no.
waiting for the Olympics. But I think it'll be gone by September. So that'll be back. But it is a bit chaotic at the moment.
Oh, I can imagine. I guess positives and negatives to it. Okay, so someone's asked a question about modules. So you guys are kind of because you're on the double degree, you'll have like a slightly different approach to it. But how did you kind of deal with module selection when it came to when you started?
To be honest, we're taking the same model as the general LLM. It's just that we in one term we have to do pretty much twice as much, almost twice as much as the other one. But we're free in our choice. The only thing is we can't choose a specialism, which you are able to choose in the general LLM over the course of 1 or 2 years.
Yeah. I'm just going to pop into the chat the list, the module list for Paris. So how it would work for students that aren't on the double LLM like Felix and Sarah are, that you would you apply for the LLM in Paris, and then when you get here, you can choose modules to be able to specialize. So for Aladdin, you've got a scholarship, congratulations, that has to relate to intellectual property law. Intellectual property law is one of the specialisms that you can go down the route of. So that'd be totally fine. And you've got a large selection of modules that you can choose from there. So I'll pop the list in the chat so you can have a look. And then that's there for everyone as well if you want to have a look at the modules on offer. It's slightly shorter list than what we offer in London because obviously we've got faculty having to travel out to Paris, so a different format, but there's still plenty there, I would say, for you to get your teeth into. Have either of you got like a favourite module that you've studied at all while you've been with the Queen Mary side of things?
Yes, actually, it's currently still ongoing, but it is an arbitration module, and we have a quite renowned professor and she's actually designed that course for us to be able to use the skills we've acquired over the course of these classes and just in our general studies. So we're doing basically what we're doing is kind of like moods there, just some I don't know how to select an arbitrator, just those kind of cases. And we're in a safe space. We can actually learn how it's done in practice, because what you read in a book is usually slightly different than to the practice.
And have you found the lecturers have different teaching styles, and how have you found that?
Oh yeah, for sure. Some of them refer to PowerPoint, which which can be good, but not always. And sometimes lecturers are just teaching freely and basically answer every question that comes up, which are a lot because we are from different legal backgrounds. So it's always the case that a lot of questions pop up prior to the lecture, during, and afterwards.
Perfect. Sarah, what about you?
Yeah, I would probably say my favorite course so far is the same one that Felix is saying, just because it is that little bit more, it's skills and advocacy. So it is using what you've like applying everything you've learned and being able to use it. And we've just had like really good discussions, which have just make the class really exciting, I would say. Otherwise, another favorite module of mine was EU data protection. That's a subject I'm really interested in. It's actually a 30 credit module. Which was nice because it was a little bit longer than sometimes the 15 credits. If they're only four blocks, sometimes it can feel a bit short. So that was longer. And then we also had 3 different lecturers within that who had really different teaching styles and were specialized in their different areas. So for data protection, we had sort of the first 2 blocks with 2 different lecturers were more lecture based, so it'd be PowerPoints and speaking discussions, whereas the final block was case studies. So we would go through various different case studies with the professor, which was really good, and I think much more applicable to what you'd be doing if you're working in a law firm in that department.
Perfect. And who taught your skills and advocacy one that you're both keen on?
Maxi.
Oh, Maxi.
Era. Yeah.
Great. I know Maxi does a lot of teaching in Paris, so always good to give her a shout out. She's obviously doing a good job there. Okay, perfect. Aladdin's just followed up about there may be changes to the list. So when it comes to module lists, things can change because academics might be on sabbatical for particular terms, so there may be changes to module lists. At the moment, this is what we've got, and there might be some changes, but we'll update them as they come in. So it's worth just keeping an eye on the module list. You obviously be provided with all the module information when you start in September, so you can see what's available. But there might be slight changes to things, but the majority of the time it's not huge changes, or because the module list in Paris is smaller than what we have in London, we do endeavour to keep on as much as possible, just to make sure that you've got a full breadth of modules available for you to choose from. So please don't worry too much about that, but just keep an eye on the website. Okay, so we've talked a little bit about kind of what you guys have done in terms of your student community and stuff that you guys do. Have you got involved in, or do you know about kind of the debating society, or there's a team? Sarah's nodding.
So I was actually part of the debate society. I think Felix was as well, as there was a bigger group, but obviously in the end there's only 3 debaters. And so we go up against the École de Guerre. The thing about our one was we started in January, and I think it was even 2 or 3 weeks into the program, it was when the next debate was. So we were all very, very new, and we weren't really 100% sure what we were doing, but we had a really good lecturer. He was actually in London, and he usually comes for the debate, but unfortunately he didn't that time, who coached us through it. And that was a really fun experience. And it was also, because it was so early on, it was also really, really good to kind of just get into the swing of everything, and just have to learn a new topic very, very quickly. So that was, again, I would say it was one of the highlights as well of my time here so far. It was really, really good. And it was a big challenge, especially when the first couple of weeks. But it was a lot of fun. And it was also good to network as well with the École de Guerre speakers and see. So they pretty much do this as part of a training so that they can move up the rankings and also just to better their English. And they were very, very good debaters because they had been doing this class for a long time and prepared a lot compared to us. So they were very, very impressive. So I was we also learned a lot from them. And even from that, we were then able to go later on, we were able to actually visit the École de Guerre, which is close to Invalides, so close to where the Queen Mary is in Paris. And we had really, really interesting discussions about, I think it was about defense. And so we were able to listen to different panel discussions on that, which was really, really interesting as well.
Cool. Felix, did you want to add anything on that at all?
No, not really. I was just concurring.
You took part as well, which is great.
It was great, yeah.
Perfect. And then, so for you both, obviously, you're so for those joining that want to hear a bit more information about kind of the programs, how it works, we obviously have a September and a January intake for the LLM in Paris. So I know some of you watching for September, which is great. The January intake also is our intake for the double LLM, which Sarah and Felix are both on, where they spend time with Queen Mary and then time with the Sorbonne. Felix, do you want to explain kind of how that works, just for those watching?
Well, basically, so the double degree in collaboration with the Sorbonne Law School starts always in January. So what you have 5 or 6 months up until July. Yeah, you have up until July you have classes, so 5.5 months. Then you have an exam period over like 3 weeks, maybe. Yeah. And then you pretty much have to hand in your dissertation 4 weeks later. So the summer is pretty busy. It's gonna be pretty busy. And afterwards, from September, because all universities in France start on 1st of September. In this year's case, it's a Sunday, so it starts on the 2nd. And then from then on, we're gonna be at Sorbonne for another 6 months, I think, up until end of March. So it's going to be 7 months actually. And then we're required from Queen Mary to do a compulsory internship, which will last for about 3 months. Usually, and it's recommended to do it straight afterwards, but you don't have to. You can do it like up to 6 months, I think, after finishing the Sorbonne degree. But you're only gonna get your degree if you're actually finishing that internship and if you're actually managing to find one. If you don't find one, you can do another dissertation in French at Sorbonne. I haven't heard of people doing that though. So far people chose the internship due to, from my point of view, obvious reasons, just because of work experience. But it is possible. So because the job market in general in Paris is quite busy. There is a lot of applicants for a job, and it's you somewhat at major law firms you need pretty good experience in particular areas. If you have that, perfect. If you don't, it can get difficult, but you'll eventually hopefully find some. Because I was told from the director of the French program that you actually don't need to do the internship in France, which I would need to check with somebody from Queen Mary as well, but at least that's what the director of the French program told me. So that makes it a little bit easier, I guess.
Great. And how do you feel about transitioning to being taught in French to the Sorbonne?
Oh, well, I'm looking forward to that, actually. As I said before, it's my primary goal to improve my French. And it's hard when you have classes in English, you have friends in English, you basically live your life in English, except for getting groceries and going to a bar. So I'm really looking forward to that and actually get to work on that goal.
And I know you two are obviously in the situation that you're going to be taught in French, so you've got a real investment in the French language. But do many of your peers get involved in the French language and do French classes or anything that aren't going to the Sorbonne potentially?
Yeah, I think a lot of our both intakes actually have gone externally and do French courses, and I think everybody is at different levels. But I think almost everybody in the two intakes has done a French class at some point. And I think also what's really nice, actually, Felix organized this, but we did, because we don't get the opportunity to speak that much in French, that like 1 hour every week, even though we're all at different levels, from beginners to maybe doing the doubles, so potentially have a little bit more experience speaking French. We just get together and we speak French. Sometimes we do charades, like just to be able to learn different words and just speak together. Which I think is again really, really nice. And I think it shows again that community feel, and we're all trying to be there and support each other, which is really, really good. And also maybe for people who are doing just the not the double, it might be good to know just a little bit more about the different intakes. And so if you start in September, you'll be with, for half of it, you'll be with the previous January intake. And then from January onwards, you'll be with the second intake. So again, even though the classes are small and it might only be 6 months with either intake, you do again have the opportunity in those 6 months, because it is so small, to make those different connections. So by the end of it, you will have a pretty good network. And again, everybody's from everywhere, which is really, really exciting and interesting.
That's a really good point. Thank you for highlighting that, Sarah. And how did you find coming in January to kind of a group that some of them were already established, but obviously you were coming with a new group of students as well?
Yeah, again, I think everybody is so welcoming. Everybody obviously was in that same position 6 months prior. So even on our welcome week, we had people from the previous intake who were there, and were saying, helping us. For example, I was still looking for a place, and they'd send me like, "Oh, look at this website, this website." And as well, when we were in classes, like everybody, especially at the start, went up to the new people and introduced themselves. So very quickly, like you were able to know everybody. And then as well, the class reps are also is another thing that you could do, and it's also great for your CV. Are a big part of that, and helping sort of blend the two different cohorts. And we have like, originally we had sort of the January intake group chat, and then we have like the big group chat with everybody. And realistically, that's what we use now. If people have questions or on different modules, like everybody's together and everybody gets to know each other.
Great, that's fantastic. Thank you. And you also mentioned Welcome Week, so which is always good for people to hear about. Felix, maybe you can answer this one to give Sarah a little break. Is what can students expect from Welcome Week? What happens in Welcome Week?
Okay, so
Thinking back
basically
all that time.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember everything actually, because a lot has been in between. But I think in the beginning you're basically just learning about the building and Queen Mary and ULIP, University of London Institute in Paris in general. And then afterwards, because you have to decide your models within like 4 days after starting. So during the welcome week, so basically you get an introduction to all the different modules on arbitration, IP, on technology, and just banking and finance, and the general ones. I think there are general ones as well. So that's what your day consists of, but there's also some socializing. So on the first 2 days we had lunch together, which was actually organized. So that's a great possibility just for getting to know as many people as possible and just talking to everybody, even if it's just hello, what's your name? But you meet the people, you get to know them. And on the first day in the evening, ULIV actually organized a welcome drink, which was where previous students actually attended as well, as Sarah said, from the September intake, but also from an intake that was a year ago. So from the double now, which is actually quite cool, because you can ask questions, especially in the double, where you don't get to see previous students due to the obvious reason that you're not a Queen Mary anymore. So welcome week was quite intense. You do a lot, especially if you look at the timetable afterwards. but it's just a great possibility to get to know everybody. And I think in the first week we even managed to go out for drinks after the class, organized by ourselves, which is just perfect.
You sound like a really social bunch, which is really nice.
Oh yeah, we are. We are.
It makes such a difference. Okay, so someone's asked, is this degree, your double degree, I take it, a master's 2 in Paris or a general postgraduate? You guys will know this probably more than me. It's just a general postgraduate.
Yeah, I think it's a general postgraduate. I think it can be seen as a master 2, but that's something we're not actually 100% sure about. Again, we haven't gotten to that stage, but I think that is what it's considered as well.
Perfect. Constanza's asked about Welcome Week start dates. You'll get all that through shortly. I'm just actually sorting the communications of Angeliki, my colleague, which will be sent out to you with all details about the coming months and what to expect if you're starting in September. No, I don't think it'll be before the 9th of September. I'm pretty sure it's around that mark. So please don't worry. We've still got some time. Okay. I'm going to ask probably one more question, and then if any other questions come in, we'll go with that. If not, we'll close up a bit early. So you're now 6 months in. Have you got any around that mark, any tips or advice for students for when they come and study with us in Paris? Top tip.
I say go for the model list. I did that before, but I could have gone over it a couple more times just because you have limited time on deciding what you actually want to do. And I think the notebook on the different modules is available online as well. I'm not quite sure. I was greeted with it when I first came in, so I had to do a lot of thinking during the first phase, which could have been prevented. So go for the model list and decide on what you want to do.
Sarah, what about you?
Yeah, I would add to that as well. And there were a couple of people who missed Welcome Week, but I do think Welcome Week is a very important week to be there because you do get all the information on the different modules, and it is the beginning when everybody's new and you get to socialize with everybody. My other top tip would be, I do think because I think you do have to be self-disciplined. So I think from the beginning, try to have those habits for studying, even if you might not have class. I think that makes a really big difference, and being prepared for class as well makes a big difference. It can be, I think, when you do, sometimes you will have a lot of blocks, very, very condensed, and it can be challenging to do all the preparatory work. So I would say the earlier you get started, the better. I would also say for anybody doing the specialisms, also to mention that you do then have to do your dissertation in that specialism. So make sure that is the one you want to do as well. And then also, if you have an idea of your dissertation, if you're doing one, that would also be really, really good. And I think, again, in the Welcome Week, if you're speaking, some of the lecturers come in from London to actually speak to you. Make use of that if you have an idea for dissertation, or prior to, again, relatively quickly after you join, you have to do a dissertation proposal. So again, reach out to any lecturers, even if you haven't met them, and try to get as much information as you can before picking your dissertation topic.
That's a great one because we haven't touched on dissertation. So thank you, Sarah. That's really helpful. And then last tip, aside from your studies, something you must do in Paris. It doesn't have to be touristy. Go on, Felix.
I'd probably say eat steak tartare and drink a nice glass of wine in a lovely French restaurant. We've all done that here. I can confirm that, and it's just beautiful. If the weather would be nice, maybe.
Hopefully soon. Sarah, what about you?
I think there are beautiful parks in the center of the city, and just walking around and just taking in, I think, all the architecture. I think you could similar to London, I guess you could walk for hours, but it's much more aesthetic, I think. So it's so pretty. So I would say that.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to wrap us up here. Just to say thank you to you both for your time today in talking all about the program. It's really great to have it from your perspective, and I'm sure it'll be useful for anyone watching this. So thank you so much for your time. I appreciate you're really very busy at the moment with everything. So thank you. For anyone watching, please feel free to go on LinkedIn and follow the LLM Paris page as well, as that's a really good spot for seeing stuff that's been happening over in Paris for the students. And if you have any questions at all, always feel free to get in touch. But I'm going to close it off there. So thank you, Felix. Thank you, Sarah, for your time. Thank you, everyone, for joining. And I will wish you a lovely rest of your day.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye. Bye.